This week, we welcome Theresa Lanowitz, Head of Cybersecurity Evangelism at AT&T Cybersecurity, and Scott Stout, Vice President, America's Security Sales at Cisco, to discuss securing edge computing use cases by aligning to business outcomes. In the Leadership and Communications section, cybersecurity should be a business priority for CEOs, what CISOs should exclude from SEC cybersecurity filings, effective communication, the key to workplace success, and more. Business Security Weekly starts now.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
Broadcasting live, it's the show where we explore the business of security to improve the security of business. Your trusted source for actionable insights on leadership, communication, and innovation. Get ready for Business Security Weekly. $270. That's the average number of times a company comes under cyber attack each year. And the average cost of a successful data breach is $4.35 million. Cygnus ensures your internal and external teams are securely connected, confident, in control, and compliant during a cyber crisis. Visit securityweekly.com/Cygnus to learn more. That's CYGNVS.
Make sure you subscribe to the Below the Surface podcast by Eclipsium in partnership with CRA. Myself and Scott Shefferman host this show, and we've had the pleasure of speaking with some amazing guests, including Zeno Kova, Richard Hughes, Vincent Zimmer, and more. We discuss topics related to firmware and supply chain security, uncovering those pesky vulnerabilities that lie, well, below the surface in your environments. You can find all the episodes and subscribe by visiting eclipsium.com/podcast or searching for Below the Surface in your favorite podcast catcher.
Welcome to Business Security Weekly. This is episode number 325, recorded October 23rd, 2023. I am your host, Matt Alderman. Joining remotely for this segment today, first, Mr. Jason Albuquerque. Hey, the Patriots won.
The Patriots won a game, my friend. It's amazing. We beat the Bills, surprisingly. Everybody here in New England thought we were going to get killed, but we pulled one out. Hey, the Broncos beat the Packers. Browns beat the Colts. And how about that Bama showdown, man? Talk about the Eagles taking out the Dolphins, man. Woo. We had that Bama quarterback showdown.
Yeah, there was good back and forth there for a while. Jalen just got a little bit on him.
He does.
A little bit. Also joining me for this segment is Mr. Tyler Robinson. Welcome back, Tyler. We missed you.
Missed you too, buddy. It's good to see you guys. It's been too long.
Always good to see you. Join our Discord channel to chat with our hosts, ask questions, customize live stream alerts, and more. Visit securityweekly.com/Discord to receive an invite. This segment is sponsored by AT&T Cybersecurity. To learn more, please visit securityweekly.com/ATT Cybersecurity. Theresa Lanowitz is a proven global influencer on the trends and emerging technology poised to help today's enterprises succeed. Formerly an industry analyst at Gartner, Theresa was at the forefront of establishing the firm's application quality ecosystem and was a champion of application security technology. She also created and launched the Gartner Application and Innovation Solutions Summit, a premier conference for application and software engineers. Throughout her career, Theresa has been a trusted advisor to some of the most innovative and influential companies and executives in the world. Scott Stout joined Cisco in December 22 as America's VP, Global Security Specialist Organization. In this role, he is responsible for leading the growth of the America's security go-to-market strategy and execution across the portfolio. His team's mission is to help customers reduce their risk profile and drive top customer and partner business outcomes with security. Before joining Cisco, Scott held sales and leadership positions for 20 plus years at Imperva, ForcePoint, Palo Alto Networks, and most recently serving as VP of American Sales at Deep Instinct. Theresa, welcome back. Scott, welcome to Business Security Weekly.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here again.
Yeah.
So
By the way, I
we're going
love
to
all the
talk.
football talk, Matt. I thought we were going to get into like a fantasy football thing, but I guess we'll talk about security today.
We're going to talk about security, but Jason and I love football. I'm a Buckeyes fan. A lot of people know that. Tough game this weekend with Penn State. I'm glad they won. But then our pro teams have been all over the place this year. So it's always fun to see like what surprises we're going to get on any given Sunday.
And I didn't mention it, guys, but my son plays fantasy, and he actually in his pick'em he bet against the Patriots because he was that confident we were going to get our butts kicked.
All right, so let's get into cybersecurity. So Scott and Theresa, as we were doing the prep for this, Scott, you said something that I've got an article about this coming up in the next segment, and it's about business outcomes, right? And I think one of the challenges we see right now with cyber is we're not aligning to business outcomes. We're just not, and until we do, I think we have a long road to hoe here.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I would agree with you, Matt. And I think that's the evolution of where you even start to see with CISOs in their roles, right? So one of the things I think is a great indicator is their reporting structure, right? You're starting to actually see CISOs work less with or work less for the CIO and more even directly for the CEO because they're aligning those security outcomes to the business drivers and the initiatives of the business, right? And how are they solving those challenges out there? I think that's really a telling thing around where the market and the roles and expectations are really starting to align up with.
Yeah, it's as
Yeah,
Jason.
and I totally agree with you, Scott. The whole idea of business outcomes tied back to security, that's something that's really critical. And if you look back 3, 4, 5 years ago, prior to the pandemic, security was just this perceived as this group of really smart people off in the corner. Great, you tell us what we need to do, and maybe we'll do it, maybe we won't. And as you said, it was more working for the CIO versus the CEO. And with the pandemic, security moved from being really a technical issue to being a business requirement. And we're seeing that security now has more of a seat at that proverbial table. And what we also are seeing is that as we move forward with new types of computing, security having that full seat at the table, organizations are really investing pretty much equally across the board between security, applications, new types of applications, networking, and also doing a lot more planning. So security is being perceived as far more strategic, I think, moving forward. And if an organization isn't doing that, then they really have to take a look at why they're not doing that and really investing in security, moving kind of at an equal level.
That's interesting. Both Theresa and Scott, I'd love to get your input on this because on this show, probably for the last, let's call it 60 days or more, we've been having a lot of conversations around budgets getting cut from a security perspective, CISO salaries remaining stagnant, the influence that CISOs are having on the business diminishing. But what are you guys seeing out there in the landscape? Because, we've been having conversations around, is the CISO's role backpedaling? So that's a fear right now, is that our role and our influence is actually starting to take a backpedal. What are your thoughts on that?
Let me start with that, and then I'd love to hear
in?
Scott's thoughts too, because Scott's out with clients every single day. So our AT&T Cybersecurity Insights report, it's our thought leadership report. We publish it once a year. It's vendor neutral, forward looking. And one of the questions we ask every year is, as you're looking at edge computing, as you're looking at moving forward with new types of computing that is really underpinned by new types of networks with lower latency, higher bandwidth, new types of applications that are not necessarily GUI types of applications that are more machine to machine. We ask organizations, and we do a global field survey. This year it was 1,418 people. One of the questions we ask is, how are you budgeting for your edge computing? And we ask people how they're breaking down their budget across 4 areas: planning, network, security, and applications. And for 2023, the budget allocation came back as they're allocating about 22% of their overall edge computing budget for security, 22% of their overall edge computing budget for applications, 30% for network, and 23% for planning. And that's across the board of 1,418 global participants. So we're seeing that security is really part of that budget process, that it is something that organizations are saying, yeah, it's something that's really critically important. And the CISO, from what I have seen, the CISO is having more of an impact on the business, on how the business is planning, because the business realizes that their business is digital, it's digital first, and their customers, whether it's a business to consumer environment or business to business environment, they want to make sure that they're taken care of, that they can work in this trusted, protected, and clean environment.
Does that mean that we're behind the curve then, and we didn't allocate enough money up front, or does that mean that we are not prioritizing the correct things? Do we have a gap in people getting up to speed on what is actually protecting, or are things just too expensive and that budget is not going far enough because of the cost of doing these businesses?
I think you're highlighting like the generic problem across the entire space, right? So I think, Theresa, you're exactly right. Like the market conditions that you're describing are spot on, right? So you have the world has changed in terms of, you had people working from offices, then they were working at home during COVID. Now hybrid work seems to be the go forward strategy. You have this journey to the cloud. We have the more investment into edge computing, to Theresa's point. The complexity is increasing. There's staffing and talent challenges. And I think the net is, and people are asking this question, which is, if costs are rising, are we more secure? And that's probably, we could probably debate that. I spend a ton of time in the field meeting with customers, and invariably the journey of a conversation I have with a CIO or CISO goes something like this, where I sit down and immediately they talk about best of breed. They're a best of breed shop, and this is what they believe in, which is fantastic. Very quickly after that, we start to go into this security tools rationalization initiative. What is that, right? Basically, we spend a lot of money on security. Are we getting the value for that? Right. And it felt like every single meeting that I went on went like that. So I actually did a little research, and I looked up, and what Gartner was saying is that in 2023, cybersecurity trends, platform consolidation is number 4 on that list. And if you take it a step further, in 2020, 29% of organizations were going through some type of security vendor consolidation initiative, 29% in 2020. In 2023, that's 75%, right? So to your point, there's a lot of investment in there. And the question is, as the surface area continues to expand, are we getting the value for that? And how do we look at this and maybe reshape how we go to market and look at them and protect the organization?
How are companies measuring?
And I think Scott brings up, I think Scott brings up a really great point about consolidation and organizations looking to move to more of a platform play rather than saying, oh, we're going to bring in these individual point products. Because we know that there's been a lot of investment in security over the past several years. But as that complexity continues to grow, nothing leaves. We just take more and more on. So we have had the democratization of computing ever since we've come out of the mainframe data center. So we've had web applications, mobile applications. Now we have the journey to the cloud. We're moving to the edge. We still have client server we have to take care of. So nothing goes away. The complexity continues to increase. The attack surface continues to expand. And we have to be more diligent about it. And we have to make sure that we're not responding to a bunch of false positives on a regular basis. And so that look at platform consolidation really comes into play.
Mm.
Tyler, I knew you wanted to get in there a second. I'll let you come back in. You had a question, I think, a follow-up.
Yeah, I was just curious, like how are companies beginning this journey and beginning to measure these metrics of consolidation and value and return on investment for security tools? I mean, you guys think back to our holiday episode where we talked through and went down this path of consolidation and kind of our predictions for the year. And man, I don't know if we could have been any more spot on, but we know those are things. We know that these are areas that businesses and leaders are concerned about and beginning initiatives. But how are they actually doing that from the bolts to do good measurements, good metrics around this, and getting the holistic view of all of the tools and what they're providing, and then doing a quantitative evaluation of those across the entire business and multiple business orgs and units? How is that actually happening now?
I think a lot of this starts with a baseline and really understanding where you are and where you want to get to. And if we look at some of the top use cases, let's take a look at edge computing, for example. We take a look at some of the top edge use cases. In our 2022 research, one of the top edge use cases we found was with manufacturing. And manufacturing said, we're using edge computing for video-based quality inspection, which to me is just a fascinating use case. Because what that says is they're using IoT devices, OT types of devices to really look at the business outcomes that they're delivering. So your manufacturing line, you're manufacturing some widget on that manufacturing line. And with video-based quality inspection, you understand exactly where a defect is inserted. So you can then, as a manufacturer, stop that assembly line where that defect is inserted. And you can then say, all right, we have had, with the widgets that we're manufacturing, we've had less recalls because we have this better quality controlled manufacturing environment. So you can start to see those business outcomes. And I think as we move to this new idea of edge computing specifically, that's where this idea of strategy and planning comes into place. And organizations can really start with the end in mind and say, here's the business outcome that we want to achieve. How can we achieve this with what we're going to do? And I think that's really one of the things that, from a business planning perspective, really starting with the end in mind and understanding what those business outcomes are that you want to achieve.
Yeah, Theresa, I think you nailed it, right? The way I look at it is kind of two areas. One is like, we got to keep our eye on the prize. What are we solving for, right? So great example of in a manufacturing use case, or even, I was thinking about one this morning around healthcare, for example, right? So what is the charter of a healthcare organization? Well, it's to provide superior medical care to their patients, right? And that obviously requires solving for patient safety. Well, patient safety includes controlling any access or devices that are on the network. Patient information, whether it's in an MRI device or any type of IOMT, and along with the network, that's all working together and providing those outcomes. So when you start thinking about the impact of these devices on how healthcare outcomes occur, I mean, we're talking about saving lives, and it's not to be trivialized whatsoever, right? So then when you start thinking about that, then it starts to get a little bit more clear, and we stop thinking about individual products, and we start thinking about the security outcomes and the capabilities that are required to solve for those outcomes. Then all of a sudden we start to go into this mode where we continue to reevaluate where our investments is, not so much product A versus product B, but really what do we need to solve those outcomes to align to our charter as an organization. And that's a much more interesting way, and I think a much more scalable way, quite frankly, to improve security postures within organizations.
Agreed.
We see huge businesses making plays to cover those more dynamically and in a broader range, because I mean, you just hit that right on the head as you look at these. What is solving the problems? If you can find companies that are doing this at scale across multiple tools that all integrate and provide that, look at Microsoft and their O365 platform with all the things that they are now providing and taking on, from a spam, edge computing, holistic computing, all of the things that are there. Are there still chances then for these small innovative companies to then stand out and make a stand in places with this consolidation happening from a business standpoint?
My 2 cents is I definitely think there's a place for that innovation, 100%. But my sense is that, and what I'm just seeing, reading the field and reading our customers, and by the way, what's really interesting about when I meet with these customers is they take me on a journey when I meet with them. It starts with best of breed, right? Which is kind of what you're talking about, the innovation part of it. Then they go through tools consolidation. Then we start talking about risk and reducing the surface area risk. And then right before I walk out the door, they talk about a buying program, which is literally a journey upon journey right within there. But yeah, I agree with you. Like I envision where the market's going is the platform players, and there's a handful that bring the credibility and the breadth of portfolio to customers where they can drive, a large percentage. What percentage of that mileage will vary is my guess, 60, 70, 80%, I don't know. But I think there will be a place for that innovator, those innovators that are specific to an industry or a company that will provide that extra value. And I think that's great, because that will continue to drive the market as well.
And Scott, the key for those innovators is
what Scott's really
to tap into to that ecosystem, right? To those larger players who have that ecosystem-driven product or platform, but for those innovators to be able to snap in and join that ecosystem, so that way you can continue to have that context across the entirety of your platform.
Yeah, and I think AT&T falls in this, and I don't want to steal Theresa's thunder. I'm sure she'll do a great job with it. But from Cisco's perspective, we have a view of the world that if it's connected, it's protected. I mean, how many of these innovator solutions have to work within a framework of Cisco? Like a very large percentage of them, right? So those type of players, those large platform players have a distinct advantage to be able to provide better outcomes for customers today. Will they be the 100% solution? I don't know if that's the right answer or not, but I think that's where I'm seeing that trend continue to happen with our customers.
Yeah, and I think what the nuance we're getting to here is it's really about securing the use case. Because I think in the past, we've taken a look at security as it's a one-size-fits-all. And now we have these very diverse sets of use cases. Scott talked about healthcare. Anything from a healthcare perspective that's connected to the network, that's an endpoint. So you have to worry about securing those endpoints from a healthcare perspective. You look at manufacturing, the video-based quality inspection, securing the cameras, the sensors, the valves that you might have on a manufacturing floor, the assembly line, any tool you have to help with assembly. You have to worry about securing all of those endpoints. And as we move to this idea of edge computing, where it's really about digital first, giving you that good security outcome from edge computing, it really is saying, let's look at securing that use case. And securing edge computing, it's more circuitous, because you have a lot of different diverse endpoints. They're not within the four walls of your organization. You look at the healthcare example that Scott brought up, every endpoint that is out there needs to be secured, and they're not necessarily within the four walls of the hospital. They may be in a surgery center, they may be in a doctor's front office, they may be inside an exam room, and so on. So there are a lot of different endpoints that have to be secured. It's circuitous, and one of the things that we hear constantly is that organizations want to make sure that they are future-proofing what they're doing, that they're looking for what that end state is going to be. So as new standards may come in, they want to make sure that they can very easily adapt what they've done to those new standards. They also want to make sure that they're building for business resilience as well as cyber resilience, so that in the event of some unforeseen incident, they can continue to operate.
And Theresa, that use case scenario is even more important, because we're in the days now, you guys are mentioning the healthcare side of the aisle. Telemedicine and the hospital from home, which the AT&T cybersecurity report calls out, you're seeing, technologies, operational technologies in folks' homes, in field laboratories. That makes the risk even more complex to manage when you're dealing with a patient's home, because they're trying to figure out strategies on how not to overwhelm hospital beds. My company helps out a local hospital here with their bed check systems. And at the end of the day, they're struggling sometimes with the amount of folks that they can allow into the hospital.
Yeah, and I think that's why that planning component is so critical. And probably previous generations of computing, we may not have seen planning become so critical. So planning becomes really critical. 23% of overall edge computing budget is being allocated to planning. And what the other thing that becomes really critical is this idea of bringing in that trusted third-party advisor. And I'll bring in just another stat from the AT&T Cybersecurity Insights report. 71% of our global survey participants say that once they get an edge computing use case to full implementation or production, they want to bring in that trusted third-party advisor, whether it be a global systems integrator, cybersecurity consulting, managed security service provider, or a telco to help them with networks. So there are a variety of trusted advisors that they can bring in to help. But what they're saying is, this is new. The outcomes are really critical to maybe safety, maybe business, but the outcomes are really critical. So we want to make sure we're bringing in that trusted third-party advisor.
Scott, as you were talking about the security outcome side aligned to the business objective, it leads me back to the need for the CISO and the security organization to understand the business and work with the business leaders. I mean, this is one of the, I think, still challenges with the CISO role a little bit is, are they trusted? Are they working across the business to understand what the business objectives are so that they can align their security outcomes to those? I mean, are we making progress there? Are you seeing good progress of this in the field? Because we cover lots of articles on this. I don't think we're at critical mass quite yet.
Yeah, I mean, just observationally, I would say, Matt, is like I am starting to see that evolution from the CISO being more of a technical implementer to being more of a risk manager, right? And you can just see, like we talked about a little bit, is just even through the reporting structure for sure. But excuse me, aligning to those drivers, I think is super critical. Think about, I mean, we've touched on a healthcare use case. We've touched on a manufacturing. I feel like I could rattle off a bunch of them. Like even when you're starting to see those conversations happen, and I'll pick another industry like financial services, which is kind of a stock one that I think everyone picks on. But think about the evolution of what financial services organizations are looking to do, right? So there'll always be highly M&A. That's just kind of stock for that space. And there's a litany of risk and vulnerability and GRC that goes along with that. But think about as the business of financial services start to design what they are going to be in the future, right? So think about customized experiences, right? So on-demand services, customized product, almost akin to like an Amazon, right? Like that's the journey that industry is going on. And then you have to align and partner. The CISO has to be a partner in that conversation around security and where that's going. The security, the market conditions of, regardless of the industry, let's pick on financial services, is going to be complex enough by itself. Security doesn't necessarily have to track at the same complexity level. We can leverage some efficiencies of scale to provide better outcomes. So that's how I'm starting to see those conversations start to evolve, even in the last, 3 or 4 months, Matt.
It's good. We're making an impact, Jason.
I know. Love it.
Clearly.
Theresa, Scott, thank you so much for joining us on Business Security Weekly.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
If you
This
ever
has been great.
talk about fantasy football, invite me back, please.
All right, we'll do that. To learn how to protect your edge ecosystem, please visit securityweekly.com/ATT Cybersecurity. We're going to take a quick break and then cover the leadership and communications articles for this week.